Good afternoon, everybody, and a belated happy Beaujolais Day to everybody. I'm Marty Cook alongside of my co-host, what did they say? Mon ami, Joseph Villa.
The
And,
guy who keeps disappearing. I keep waving the flag and my face keeps going away. Yeah.
and on behalf of the Pennsylvania Wine Society, we're excited to join you for another in our series of virtual wine tastings. Our topic today is Beaujolais Nouveau. Do you have anything to say before we commence?
No, I'm just welcomed everyone and try to be patient with these PowerPoint presentations. I know they can be kind of lengthy and boring maybe, but we do get to taste. And hey, as a matter of fact, I think we're just on Nouveau for the most part. So slug it back as we go, because when we get to the point of tasting, we're going to do it again. So let's have some fun.
And I would ask that everybody keep their microphones muted today, and use make frequent use of the chat facility if you can. It looks like we've got, oh goodness, 27 people or 27 connections so far connected with us. So let me share the screen once again. And oh, brother. All right, here we go. I hope we don't have to suffer through that music again.
No.
So here we are. Where are we? We're in the world.
Yeah. Let's start this off with, just trying to point out to people where we're going to be here. I'm not sure where everyone is in geography. It's just my thing, but I like to kind of zero in where we're at least in the world. And the bullseye thing, we discussed this last tasting. I'm going to try to pull you in as close as we can. So,
right. Go ahead. I was going to say, right there's where we're going.
Going to France.
Going to France and zeroing in on the bullseye, as Joe says. We're going to move right on into the Beaujolais region.
If you see that town of Lyon, we're going to be just north of Lyon. South of Lyon is going to be the Rhone Valley. North is going to be Burgundy.
A little more specificity to what Joe just said. So we're in eastern France. Burgundy is to the north. We are going to be south of the town of Mâcon and north of the town of Lyon. And the Rhone region will be to our south. And if you look to the map to the right, you will see a dark purple area right above northern Rhone and right below the red Burgundy region. And that's where we're going to be. And it's along the
Saône River.
Saône River.
Here I'll zero in a little bit better just to see the one region we're looking at here is that deep dark purple area. That is Beaujolais. But our specific Nouveau is coming from the south part of Beaujolais. And we're going to get into that. If you look just to the south of that, where we're at here in the dark purple, that lighter purple, that's the Rhone. That's the Rhone river region. And it's butting right up against this area in South Beaujolais.
So now we've got this area highlighted here, and which is this is the foothills right here, right?
Well, I want everyone to be aware that here in France, everything pretty much starts at the Central Massif. I don't know how much you're, again, familiar with French geography, excuse me, but all of our wine growing regions, whether it be to the left or in this case, to the right of the Massif is going to be, I want to say it controls quite a bit. When we're talking about where these wines are grown, there is a lot of influence here, not to mention water runs from the Massif out to the sea. So waterways, where there's a vineyard, where there's a wine growing region, there's always a river or waterway.
Now, Beaujolais is, well, first of all, so you see the outline in purple of the Burgundy region. And Beaujolais is going to be at the southern tip of the Burgundy region.
Yeah, excuse my rough drawing of Burgundy, but it was kind of hard because I wanted you to see a relief of the Massif, but still get an idea of where Burgundy is as a region. But real quick, I want to just ask everyone out there, are you aware that the spelling of Burgundy, you will not see Burgundy on a bottle of French Burgundy? I don't know if you're aware of that. It's actually Bourgogne. Bourgogne is the region that it comes from. It's Burgundy is us anglicizing Bourgogne. It's actually the only region, I think, in France for the most part that we turn it into something else. We call the region something that just sounds, I guess, better to us. Maybe it's better than us saying Bourgogne. It isn't Bourgogne, it is Bourgogne. And again, we just make it simpler by saying Burgundy. I just thought that'd be just a point of note. Don't confuse it with 4-liter bottles labeled Burgundy from California, because it has nothing to do with real Burgundy.
Nor does that stuff probably have any Pinot Noir in it. So.
Nothing to do with real Burgundy, correct.
So Beaujolais, as I pointed out, is in the southern tip of that purple outline. And whoever has their mic turned on, please mute your microphone, and excuse me while I admit some more people to the Zoom.
And I'll just make a quick mention. The map off to the right is actually one of the map previous that I hand drew and pointed to the south. This is actually that area, just that specific area in the south, Beaujolais, just blowing up. So now that's what we're going to do, is just tune really just into southern Burgundy, or just this region of Beaujolais.
Okay, let me reinstate the okay. So I've got some comments already coming at us.
Yeah, that's fine. Oregon Pinot Noir, perfect.
Yeah, that's
Pinot. It's very fine line, but no, those will work just fine. Yeah.
All right, so let me just get rid of this. All right, so the geographic dimensions of Beaujolais. I did the math, 34 times 9. I think I used 8 actually, split the difference. And it comes up to almost exactly half the square mileage of Dauphin County. So in other words, the area in Beaujolais of which we're speaking is about half the size of Dauphin County, to just give you some perspective. There are nearly 4,000 vineyards, totaling upwards to 2,000 wine growers in that region. The total surface area is only 61 square miles, which is relatively small when you think about how much wine they actually produce.
Yeah, here's kind of a blow up of that map that we were just looking at there.
Yeah, and also the we have 12 officially designated AOCs in Burgundy, and Joe wants to know, what is AOC, not who. Okay. Can somebody
not who? Leave that alone, guys. What is AOC? What does it refer to? And just take a minute, please give us some answers. What you think AOC really refers to? You can tell me exactly what it stands for, or again, an interpretation of really what it means.
Any takers? Appellation. Somebody says appellation. Gary Slobodian.
I'll take my hat off. Maybe I'll reappear.
All right. So we'll take the music off too, because now that Gary got the actual answer, music.
Did he get it? What did he say?
He said appellation. Well,
Control A, absolutely.
Actually, that's Ken that says appellation control.
Good.
So, okay.
Appellation d'origine contrôlée. What that refers to in France law, they actually have a wine law in France as opposed to California. I'm sorry, I love French wines for this reason, that the law is actually very controlled as to where they grow grapes, what grapes, just pretty much the A to Z to everything in controlling the grape growing in that particular area. And while we're talking about, again, Beaujolais and Burgundy, this AOC is very, very important, because just Beaujolais in itself has 12 different specific AOCs. So in a way, you're going to have 12 different kind of wines. But within this, you have what they refer to as 10 crus. Does anyone really know what a cru is? I didn't know if anyone... I'm glad someone got an AOC, Appellation Origin Control A, but what is a cru? I didn't know if anyone can say, yeah, exactly, growth, yeah. And what we're talking about is a vineyard or a specific group of vineyards, just back to my bullseye theory, getting more and more specific within a region. Our wine today is not coming from this area.
Okay, so in Beaujolais, we've got actually specifically in the northern half of Beaujolais, we've got Beaujolais and Beaujolais villages, or is it Beaujolais village?
I say village.
Okay, and they are the two most common AOCs in northern Beaujolais. And the region itself is naturally divided by a line of demarcation established by the river.
Yeah, there's a North Beaujolais. North Beaujolais, we want to say, is pretty much where these villages, where those villages, where those specific crus, those villages pretty much are in the north. Everything in the south is just straight Beaujolais. So what we're having today in Beaujolais Nouveau, it's not Beaujolais Village Nouveau. That would come from the north. This is coming from specifically the south. But this natural division is by the river, Nizarand River. And I do have it kind of marked on the map there. The left line actually is the actual line where the river is. On one side, it's village and the crus. On the south side of that line, it is just straight Beaujolais. And following that out to the sea, the town of, how do you say that, Marty?
Villefranche-sur-Saône.
What did you say?
Here, let's try that again.
And I know we have
Villefranche-sur-Saône.
I know we have some French-speaking people in the audience. Villefranche-sur-Saône.
Villefranche-sur-Saône.
Yeah, that was the Lebanon County version. Sorry.
There you go. So anyway, we've got two separate, totally distinct soil types in Beaujolais. One to the north of the river, and one to the south,
and one to the south. It's very, very simple that way.
And the Beaujolais Nouveau that we are discussing today actually comes from the south.
The south.
And Beaujolais is primarily marl and limestone.
Yeah, and I want you to keep that kind of a thing like clay, very fertile soil is in Beaujolais. But when you get to the village and the crus, it becomes more granite and schist. So I want to suggest there's going to be more minerality, if you believe in that, in the north. And in the south, the wines are just going to be more fruitly.
And there again, it's just a portrayal of how small an area it really is. And as far as the excuse me, as far as the climate, I think we're both suffering from throat issues today. But at any rate, the climate is similar to what we have here. It's semi-continental. It's
you get all four seasons.
Yeah. So you'd probably feel quite at home there. Oh, and did you hear that little? Did anybody hear that?
That's a bad wind effect. Okay. So they get winds in Beaujolais, but there's a lot of protection from when we point out the Central Massif, more specifically coming down off the Massif, there's the Mont de Beaujolais, which also, again, just adds more specific protection. If you know about the wines of the Rhone, wind can be a terrible problem. And here in the south of Beaujolais, it is, and this is where the mountains actually come in and add that protection.
Well, there's also the Mediterranean influence from the south, where they get the warm air currents, which end up causing the summers to be warmer and drier.
This is on the Rhone. This turns in just south of Beaujolais is the Rhone and the Rhone River, and that flows out to the Mediterranean. And that's bringing up a lot of warm, dry air from the Med. And that's actually going to affect southern Beaujolais more so than the north. So our climates are, even in Beaujolais, are going to be slightly different and give you slightly different wines, not just soil, but even the climate.
So what we've got is greater ripening potential than Burgundy. Oh, so I'm sorry, Bourgogne.
Or is that Bourgogne? It's not Bourgogne. It's Bourgogne. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. So, and you would anticipate such because they grow Pinot Noir in Bourgogne, and I know, just horsing around. And so, at any rate, which is a cooler climate grape, and so it's a cooler climate overall in Burgundy or Bourgogne. And now you've got me all twisted
say
up.
Burgundy. I just threw my Bourgogne out there because
all right, So whereas it's warmer actually in Beaujolais, which befits the grapes that they're growing down there, which is Gamay, actually Gamay Noir. Actually, it's even longer than that. There's about 5 words in the name. But
yeah, we just kind of simplify it because we know it as Gamay Noir, just simple Gamay Red. Yeah.
But it is susceptible to a form of rot called gray rot. And for that reason, they've got to be a little fastidious about the canopy management for the
in France. Remember, in France it's a little bit different than growing grapes here in the US is like, I call it the Wild West. Pretty much anything and everything goes. If we need to grow something, we can add something, we can manipulate things and change it. And I'm not so sure vintage even matters here in the US. In France they can't do that. They have to employ these things to grow grapes. If these rots hit, they're not out there giving chemicals and all this other crap. They have to depend on that vintage and what they employ out there to make sure those grapes grow to the best of their ability. Natural grape growing.
And what that means is, pruning and thinning the leaves and so on and so forth. So there's a lot that goes on.
Yeah.
In the as far as managing the vineyards. Once again, the grape variety, 98% of the red wines from the region Beaujolais are from the Gamay Noir. Gamay actually ripens 2 weeks earlier than Pinot Noir, and it's somewhat easier to farm than the Pinot Noir grape, and it grows well in the granite soils, and it has then become associated with the region because of that. And
they make what Beaujolais?
They make white grapes used in.
Does anyone know what Beaujolais Blanc would be made from? And I'll give you a hint. It's not Gamay.
No, it's not Gamay.
It is not Gamay Blanc. No. Can anyone tell me what? Does anyone know? Then there is. Marty says he stocks 2 of them at his store. It's impressive because everyone needs.
There it is.
Hey, excellent.
Jerry says Chardonnay.
Absolutely.
You are correct.
If you know where Beaujolais is, it butts up in the north, butts up against Burgundy and Macon. So your Maconnais, your white Macon wines from Burgundy are right there in the backyard. So white Beaujolais are very close in style to the Maconnais or Macon type wines.
So a little Beaujolais history here. The Romans, of course, were everywhere thousands of years ago. And there we have a perfect example of a grumpy old Roman carrying a shillelagh. Joe says that's maybe a grapevine.
I think it's a grapevine. Yeah.
And
he's managing the vineyards.
Yes, he is. Yes. Either that or beating his slaves.
Well, that's what he's managing the vineyards. That's what I said.
Yeah. I guess that's what they said. All right. So at any rate, the area in Burgundy is
Beaujolais.
Beaujolais. I'm getting twisted up now. In Beaujolais is Brie, and it's named for Brulius, which is maybe this guy that's depicted here, an army lieutenant who oversaw that region, and Julianus.
Yeah, these are actually back to when we were talking earlier about the specific AOCs in the north, those appellations. 2 of those are Bruy and Julianus, and named after the Romans.
And Joe gets a kick out of when I say Julius Caesar, which is actually Julius Caesar's correct pronunciation. But at any rate, so time passes. All of a sudden, we're in the 7th century, and the Benedictine monks in the Catholic Church come along, and they cultivate all kinds of grapevines that were left behind by the now defunct Romans.
Yeah.
And because they could read and write, they kept copious notes. And so now today we have records going back, centuries on grape growing in France.
There's a lot of religion still in Burgundy.
And then in the 10th century, the area was ruled by the dukes of Beaujolais.
Yes. It's the town where Beaujolais gets its name. It's actually on the map. It's right there between Macon and Lyon. It used to be the capital of, and I want to say the area that really was in charge of this area and making wine. And that later changed. But anyway, this is where Beaujolais gets its name.
All right. And then, because Burgundy was more prestigious because it had the Pinot Noir grape and made Pinot Noir or Burgundy, a lot of people looked down upon Gamay and thought it to be a lower quality wine. And in 1395, Philip the Bold went so far as to outlaw Gamay and labeled it a bad and disloyal vine.
Yeah.
Bad vine.
Through French history, there were many dukes and everything, but this specifically, Philip the Bold, was known. He was a wine lover, but he specifically loved Pinot Noir and really, really despised Gamay. And he is the one that really was responsible for labeling Gamay as being this. Why are you planting this? This is not a noble grape. Get this out of my Burgundy. And why today you'll see that Gamay, well, years ago, Gamay really used to be really part of Pinot Noir in Burgundy. Today, it's a rarity to see any Gamay coming out of Burgundy. It is now more associated with Beaujolais in the South, specifically. But anyway, the Duke here, he was the man.
So the Beaujolais AOC that we've already discussed was actually created in 1937. And subsequent to that, there were various laws passed and so forth. And in 1985, the AOC passed a law that
for just Nouveau.
Yeah. And what they said was any grapes harvested in the same year or made into wine in this and released in the same year as the vintage would be labeled Nouveau or Vin de Premier, and each AOC would determine the specific dates when those wines could be released. Eventually, that was all changed so that all of the release dates coincided with the third Thursday in November.
Now, real quick, I want to mention the Nouveau law passed here in 85. But let me ask you this: even though we're talking about Beaujolais, do you think other French regions make Nouveau? Does anyone know that? Does anyone know if other French regions, other than Beaujolais,
or for that matter, any regions there in other countries?
Well, talking about the French law here, because it was applicable, not even though Nouveau law was passed in 85, the law under that was actually written for any region, any AOC region that makes a wine under this has to be labeled then Nouveau or has to follow the law. And I was just curious, does anyone know, or have you ever seen Nouveaus from other regions?
Nate says yes.
Where, Nate? I'm just curious if you, California, aren't you? You're going to California, aren't you, Nate? Tell me, Nate. You're not typing. Anyway, yes. Well, George Dubouf, that is one of our producers that we're looking at here today. Years ago, we did stock some George Dubouf Nouveau wines from the Rhone. So I always thought that was interesting, but they didn't go very far. Beaujolais Nouveau is really what people are into and all that. But yeah, I do know there are some other Nouveaus, New York and probably California, but.
Yep, he says he knows they exist, but he hasn't seen them.
Yeah.
All right. So
what does it mean?
Yes. Well, you want to tell him?
Well, it's a new wine of the vintage. It really is the brand new wine. It wasn't made that long ago, and one of the big questions I have, do you think, and this was often discussed, to get that first bottle of Nouveau, it's your first taste of that 2020. Do you think it indicates the quality, or can it indicate the quality of a vintage 2020 for other Burgundy wines or other French wines? Do you think it has any indication? I'm just curious because if there's any Any thoughts on that? Anyone out there?
We're just trying to stimulate some.
I'm trying to get some
engagement.
It's hard to get the talk going, guys. I apologize for that. As far as the quality goes, what I'd like you to consider, Beaujolais in my day, and I say I'm an old fart when it comes to these wines. Back in, I want to say 30 years ago, these Nouveaux would have been probably 12.5 alcohol at best. Did anyone notice the alcohol levels on these, which indicates absolute ripeness of the vintage? We have a variation, I think, of 13.5 and 14%. 14% echoes the Rhone and heat and ripeness. That's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. So what I'm going to suggest is this 2020, watch when the real Beaujolais hit the shelf, guys. Watch when the real wine. This is just a taste of the vintage. And so far, I've been really pleased. And again, seeing the ripeness, they might be a little alcoholic. Blowing flames. You're going to get that heat when you taste these. But it really is. It's a good sign. But does it indicate quality? I think it does. Distribution. How was this wine introduced to the world? It was through rivers, waterways, canals, in a local sense. But guess what? When the railway system, you click to, when the railway system hit, and it was no different than in this country. It's no different than in this country. When the rails hit, it kind of put the canals and the waterways out of service. But when the rails kind of got a hold of this, it kind of took the wine from Burgundy and a local sense, and then took it pretty much north into Paris, and pretty much introduced to the world at that point. Now, before we go any farther, does anyone see Marty? This is Where's Marty too. Yeah, I had to throw him in there somewhere, guys. Anyone's been in my shows knows that we got to do Where's Marty. Got to throw him. Marty's driving the train today. Driving the train every day, wasn't he?
Okay, so Ken Cohen says if the Nouveau appellation can only be harvested in the year the grapes are picked, how does it have time to really ferment?
We're going to cover some of that. Hang in there with that question because we're talking fermentation coming up here shortly.
And by the way, we mentioned rivers and waterways, and in the beginning, they would actually float entire barrels, even without a barge. Float the barrels down the river. So, I've chosen those.
Yes, we'll need to cover that.
Oh, here's a New York City. It's the only U.S. city to receive Beaujolais Nouveau until 1972.
Well, and again, think about it. The first wine we're going to have here is coming from George. And George DeVos is pretty much the center of this. The kind of and brought it. Even in New York, for years, George DeVos was the wine, the Nouveau that was the wine that now, obviously, we have much more access to other wines, but.
Jerry says, can't hear you over the music. And boy, we've got that turned way down.
Okay. Yeah, we're moving on, man. Sorry.
Okay, please stop the music. Can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh, that was a private message.
We stopped.
Which I'm returning to public. Okay. So at any rate, Beaujolais Nouveau, easy drinkability due to the process of carbonic maceration, which gets into answering the question earlier, because the wines in these bottles were actually grapes on the vine 60 days ago, which really is quite amazing. And
can I see that bottle again?
Which one?
The George's, yeah,
right there.
This one here, I'm going to pour another glass of. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so carbonic maceration, which is a fancy word for whole berry fermentation, and it's a process by which alcohol is created without adding yeast.
Traditional fermentation. Yeah, guys, if you know the basic law of making or the rule of making alcohol, yeast plus sugar equals alcohol, and as a byproduct, carbon dioxide. So all you need is yeast and sugar to interact with each other, and that's going to give you your alcohol. And that's what's happening naturally here.
And actually, the yeast is on the bloom on the grapes. If you ever saw that cloudy sort of bloom on each grape.
Go to the store and buy grapes. If you see that misty, cloudy stuff on the outside of even your table grapes, that isn't a misty cloud. That's yeast. Wipe it. You'll see it's yeast. So.
All right. So this technique it preserves freshness and without extracting bitter tannins from the skins, and that's the whole reason, is to keep the fermentation inside of each berry, so that the resulting wine is fruity and fresh and
we're going to go
sprightly.
Into this. Take us into that, Barry.
Yeah, and by the way, all of these berries are manually or hand harvested as required by law. They are not permitted to use machine harvesters.
I used to kind of give an example that, if you buy fresh fruit at the store, when the first thing you come home, of course, is unbag it and slam it on the counter, right? No, because you know what's going to happen if you slam it on the counter. It's going to bruise it. So as we use mechanical harvesting, say in New World or even this country, in many cases, manual or hand harvest here only is critical, because we're talking hand picking these berries and or the bunches to ensure that we're not bruising these grapes.
So a little diagram on the right, and I'm going to try to explain carbonic maceration for us here. Some of you already know, but what happens is they take the entire grape cluster without crushing or destemming the grapes, and they dump them into the tank.
Whole bunches and bunches.
Into a fermentation tank. And then they flood the tank with carbon dioxide and seal the tank. And that creates what's called an anaerobic environment. And when that happens, some of the grapes on the bottom are obviously going to be crushed by the sheer weight of the grapes above. And those crushed grapes will then start to ferment at the bottom of the tank, creating more CO2. And then okay, so all right, and the sugars, the juice sugars will interact with the natural yeast on the outside,
creating alcohol, and as a byproduct, natural CO2.
And which really the only byproducts other than alcohol are some organic acids and CO2, the gas. And then as this goes on, and of course this explains that it is intracellular fermentation, i.e. inside the berries. Once the berries reach 2% alcohol by volume inside each berry will pop, and the CO2, which has been making the berry swell, will be released.
I just want to make a mention real quick that if you think about dumping in all these berries into a big vat, the berries at the very bottom are going to be the ones that are actually crushed. And they're going to be the ones that start that natural fermentation, which will create the alcohol and CO2. That builds up in the container and actually starts that intracellular fermentation within the whole grapes above that. So it's really, carbonic maceration is really only occurring with grapes in the middle or maybe at the very top of that container. Remember, the very bottom, they were crushed, and they do what they call that natural fermentation. But carbonic maceration has to occur within that berry, and maceration occurs 1 to 3 weeks, depends on ripeness. But keep in mind that one of the wines we're having today actually says 5 days, and that indicates we are over the top with ripeness. And as I just mentioned, only the berries at the top and the middle of that tank really are going to be undergoing that full carbonic. Carbonic is, again, the grape itself, before it's crushed, before it's broken open, saturating with carbon dioxide, creating another environment in that grape, which then allows it to, where are we at here? I went too far.
I think you went too far, Joe.
Sorry.
All right. So
okay.
The bottom line is that this process is actually only semi-carbonic because of the grapes on the bottom being broken. And
correct.
And this whole process is also governed through temperature control, because you don't want to have this have these grapes in this fermentation tank hot.
Yeah, I don't know what the numbers are, but too low, too high. There are absolute numbers for this maceration to occur, and if you get outside of that range, it can really make Nouveau really funky weird.
And what will happen if you don't have the temperature controlled?
And this is just in my experience, guys. Have you ever tasted bubble gum or banana in a Nouveau? Banana, yes, banana. It's there. It can be there, but it isn't always a good thing. And sometimes, again, if you're like chewing on a banana, no, bad Nouveau, bad Nouveau.
Well, and actually, it may also be a desired sort of attribute that they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, component is one thing, but to be dominant, that's another. So
difference between flaws and faults.
Yeah.
What is that, Joe? Soup?
It looks like grapes.
Grape soup.
Yeah, it's got to have an image of grape. We're talking grapes. You got to have an image of grapes.
Yeah.
This isn't an enclosed environment, but just to give you an idea of what whole berry this is a whole berry fermentation, just not in that same enclosed environment.
Actually, I would guess this is one of those cement tanks in a floor. It looks to me. So, and now we're finally there, even though you're probably already tasting. We're about to taste the first of the three wines.
Let's talk real quick. Hey, does everyone have the George DeBoeuf with the bicycle on the front? Yeah, there's a yes. Excellent. Do you see the label that's pictured here today? This is the actual label. Yeah, there was a label contest earlier this year, back in January. This is the label that won. Why do you have bicycles? Well, real quick, before we explain the rest of the bicycle story, let's give some credit to the man himself, George DeBoeuf, there to the right. George has just passed away this year in January. So just to give credit, I mean, the man pretty much put, in my opinion, Beaujolais and this Nouveau on the map. Just like to give him some credit. But let's continue to talk about this label thing here in Pennsylvania.
Move on.
Yeah, give me a click here, brother. Oh my goodness. Yes, this was the 2020 contest of finalists of labels that were submitted for this label here that we're tasting. Number 11 won. Number 6 came in second. Number 10, that's what you're having. Huh? Number 10's artist is from Pennsylvania. So it was decided that they'll go with a Pennsylvania artist. And she was in the top, 10 finalists. So they picked her bicycle label to be the Pennsylvania Nouveau label, not the winner. The winner is actually number 11. So if there's any question in that, I've already written to the PLCB asking, because I'm a traditionalist, how do I get my traditional flower label, the label that won the contest?
Actually, I think the way it was explained to me was that they were given the option, because the number 10 artist was a Pennsylvania artist, if they would like to do a proprietary label, and so they chose to do so.
I get it.
So
I just like to, collecting labels. I like to have the real one.
So how do you get these labels off? Well, that's another.
You're so cool, man.
No, you can't.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can.
And they make stuff to spray on too. Anyway,
all right,
go for it.
All right, so George DeBoeuf got his start back in 1964, and it starts the date indicates his wine merchant business.
Yeah, George DeBoeuf was a wine merchant, and there's a wine merchant in France. There's an N word, Marty.
Negociant.
Negociant. George DeBoeuf actually was a negociant. So if you guys know the wines of Louis Jadot, George DeBoeuf is in that same vein. A negociant goes in and kind of buys wine and then labels, bottles, and markets those wines.
Actually, before that, he had pulled together some 45 growers and in an effort to market their grapes together, and that failed, and then he became a negotiator.
Okay.
So, his job was selecting the grapes, the fruit, and of course bottling and selling French wines from Beaujolais and
Macon. To the north, Macon. He was selling some of those Burgundies, but I'm telling you, he was also delving south into the Rhone, because again, years ago he marketed a Rhone Nouveau. So, but that whole area he decided to kind of help and put on the map.
We have a couple comments here, and Dave accurately comments that George originally sold wine off the back of his bicycle. That was when he was 18. He started that, which may explain the pedaled bike image.
Okay.
Could be, yeah. And Jan Kantner indicates here's my answer.
See, I told you, man. I'm telling you, there's some chemicals that'll take it right
And
off.
Mike Hyman says steam them off.
Okay.
All right, there you go. So, and then George and his wines became, ultimately became world famous. And the guy has been a star.
Look for George. Again, I say Louis Jadot and George Duboeuf. Those two negociants, you can pretty much find, I want to say, some good, solid representations of those AOCs from France. Not to mention, George, he puts flowers on his labels.
Does anybody have any comments about this first wine, either about the aromas or about the flavor? Because
did we taste them yet?
We're on the first one.
That's right. We've already had half the bottle.
Yes, okay, that's right.
Yes, exactly. Is there one more here?
Let me see.
No,
there isn't. So I'm anxious to see. Let me see. Bubblegum.
So you're getting bubblegum.
Just a hint of bubblegum,
okay.
Jerry says. And somebody else says licorice.
Oh, okay. A little bit of that on I'm assuming on the palate, on the finish. To me, it's just bright raspberry. And I'm not picking up in the way of a lot of that any of these flaws. But no tannin. That's what's lovely about these things. I could just gulp this stuff down. It's scary because I drive home. So
there you go. Yeah. Gary says he's getting violets on the nose.
There you go.
And now we're into the Beaujolais Nouveau discussion of soil.
Well, this is from Duboeuf's actual. They make data sheets on each of these wines. This data sheet didn't have anything really fancy on it. This is the basics, man. This came right from the George Duboeuf Nouveau data sheet, with simple soils. We talked about this, and that it has to be manual harvest.
I see Nate's way ahead of us because he says that the Duboeuf is more tart than the other two.
Okay.
We haven't gotten to the other two yet.
Okay.
And let me see. Somebody's trying to get into the meeting as we speak. So in the meantime, and Lynn and Bill are saying that they're getting both banana and...
You got banana from the George Duboeuf. Give me a yes or a no.
Yeah. All right. So
yes.
There
really?
You go.
Wow. I wonder if that's an off bottle because I swear I'm not getting any of those components, and kind of excited me that because normally I do. Normally they pop on Nouveau, and especially George Duboeuf.
So again, they commented harvesting is manually done. Whole bunches destemmed and carbonic maceration. And did you know the fruit that goes into the Nouveau fetches a higher price than the fruit for Beaujolais or Beaujolais Village wines? Growers benefit from premium pricing and consumers get to enjoy the best fruit of the season. So this guy really in the creation, in making Beaujolais Nouveau a worldwide thing has really helped the growers in the southern part of Beaujolais.
Yeah, George Duboeuf makes, as we're having here today, Beaujolais is a plain Beaujolais from the south, Nouveau, but he also makes a Beaujolais Village Nouveau, which comes from the north. He also, one further, makes a single Chateau Beaujolais. I'm not sure if that's from the south or the north, but a single Chateau, not from any of the crus, Nouveau. So there are different versions out there, but they cost more. Some questions why aren't they available in PA? Well, if this is $12.99, you can imagine $20 for a bottle of Nouveau may not fly. So just saying, where in other markets you might find these wines at like $9.99. So,
and by the way, in any given year, the Beaujolais Nouveau production can be anywhere from 25 to 50% of the entire production of Beaujolais.
It's a lot of wine. It's a moneymaker. It generates a lot of cash immediately.
Imagine all that wine coming from half of Dauphin County. All right, we're on to wine number 2.
I can do this moment, and I've been just drinking the other one, so the George Duboeuf.
And of course, this one actually on the aromas, And maybe this was intended, but it even says that you're going to get banana. Now that's of course
Yeah,
one
let's
person's
see. I mean, this is a
opinion.
Momosin. And did you notice also, I wanted to mention this to you, the closures. The first closure, I believe, was a piece of plubber. That's my mixture of rubber and whatever that is. And the second one here is a twist cap, which I love twist caps. And of course, the last one was plubber as well. The reason we don't have real cork here, does anyone know why we don't have real cork? Why don't they use real cork on these wines?
Too expensive, Gary says.
Not really.
I don't think so. No.
Not really.
The artificial ones are probably more expensive.
Yes, too much air. Exactly. We do not want these wines to age. Keep that in mind with Nouveau. Now, I used to teach for the board, and I had a guy one time tell me he buys a couple cases of Nouveau and he ages it and drinks it over the course of a year. My mouth hit the floor. My jaw is probably still wide open, wondering how. These wines are not structured to age, guys. They don't have tannin. They don't have the things why we age a wine to soften. These are made to drink right now. Yeah, they might get even a little softer, but I'm telling you, like any piece of fresh fruit, they're going to die. And again, I guess it's subjectable, but I don't know that the flavors would be what is intended. Let's put it that way. So I don't know. Aging is a good thing. Back to the closures. They're airtight. Yeah. So when you see that piece of plubber, that's airtight, just like that Stelvin or that twist cap.
All right, Momosin, and this is right off of their data sheet. Whole bunches macerate in temperature-controlled vats for 5 to 7 days. 5 to 7 days, and that's so that it extracts as much fruit as possible, and for balance. And the alcohol on this data sheet says 12.5, but I recall that Momosin is 14.
Isn't that interesting? You know, and I want to mention this too, guys. This came literally from their data sheet. This is their data sheet. It says 12.5. Well, they need to update that. I told you 12.5, that was a normal probably 20, 30 years ago. What's the alcohol on this Momosin today? We're looking at is this 14?
It is.
Oh,
it is 14.
14% is reminiscent of what's south of this area, the Rhone. So think about that when we talk about, these are very good. This is an excellent vintage, off the charts. Please keep your eyes open for the real wines of 2020 when they come out a year or two from now. So,
well, two people have commented that it shows a range of 11 to 14, and there is a permissible margin of error that is allowed when stating your alcohol by volume in the wine world. Although in the United States, in the United States, that margin of error is a lot larger than it is in Europe. And yeah, there it is, 11 to 14.
Yeah, I just snagged on that 14. One thing I have noticed, this doesn't seem to have, oddly enough, the George DeBoeuf I just had at 13.5 seemed to have a lot of heat on the back. I just tasted this wine, and this shows a half a degree more alcohol, and I don't get that same kind of heat.
Much more balanced.
It's more balanced, absolutely. So is it 12.5? Maybe not. Is it 14? Maybe not. Let's split the difference. Let's call it 13 or 13.5, somewhere in there. So
okay, before we leave this page, wine and food pairings. They suggest goat's cheese, cold cuts, or gratons, which are pork cracklings.
This is from their data sheet.
Pork rinds.
They're asking you to try pork rinds with their Beaujolais. So with Beaujolais Nouveau, it's pretty much anything goes. And it's a beverage. Think of what, hey, I'm thirsty. I'm getting a drink of water. No, I'm going to have a nice big glass of Nouveau. You don't have to pair it with anything. It just will go with it, pretty much anything.
But after we do this, we'll try. I have some pork rinds.
Oh, okay. I hope they're spicy and barbecued.
One bag is.
Okay.
All right. So, and then on to the last.
Yeah, last wine.
Which you will not find the name Nouveau on this bottle.
No, this is, what is that word? Premier.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Actually.
It's right at the top of the front of the bottle, up here on the top.
Yes.
Yeah. So it won't be on the main label, but at the top of the bottle, even on the back label, it's there. But Premier, remember that wine law, that AOC for Nouveau, it includes the word Nouveau and Premier. It doesn't have to say Nouveau on it, but it's synonymous. It's the same thing. So when you say Premier, that's Nouveau.
Somebody has already commented that they prefer this one. And
probably should, yeah.
This one. And we're going to get into some explanation on this one too.
Oh, that's way more. There's way more in that bottle. Yes.
Is there?
Oh my gosh.
I haven't tasted it yet.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the George DeBoeuf I could drink like water. This one here is almost stepping it up to where
It's
almost
wine.
It's wine. Yeah. Well, oh, you didn't do that.
It's all wine.
It's all wine. Yes.
But less more wine than fruit juice.
Well, like any other winemaker, though, Pierre Muir actually tastes all these wines and makes these vat selections specifically. Now, I did some research on this producer, and oddly enough, this is like one of the lower wines in the range. So if you like this wine, let's see, maybe Weygand Metzler can get us some of the other wines from this producer. Don't hold your breath with that because it's a big world out there, and Japan gets a lot of these wines.
Well, these guys, they're only growing a small amount of 20 hectares, which I looked it up, and it's 50 acres.
So we're getting a chunk of it. We're good chunk of it already. So
and it's very limited distribution. Yeah. We were fortunate to get this, and again, the soil is limestone clay soil, and which gives the suppleness and fruitiness that we've been going on and on about, and the universal cordon pruning.
They use everywhere. Cordon pruning seems to be, if you've been to a vineyard, even here in PA, you've probably seen cordon pruning.
And of course, the semi-carbonic vinification.
Same standard stuff.
So, and in this case, the least amount of maceration, a 5-day maceration.
Which indicates, again, just off the charts ripeness here, guys, for them to get this to kick off and not have to sit there and actually, it happened almost immediate.
Now, this doesn't give a range. It just gives you a flat 13.5%.
I think their law still gives probably 1.15 points either direction.
I think it's a 0.5% on either direction, less than the United States does. And again, they're using cement and stainless steel vats.
Why no wood?
You don't want this stuff to breathe, right?
Well, wood, think about this, guys. Wood also imparts flavor. We only want wood and air introduction when the wines are very big and broad and tannic. When we're talking fruit wines like this, or very fruit forward types, cement usually lined with porcelain or stainless steel. They're very neutral, and the temperatures can be controlled and kept at a cooler range.
Yeah, it would defeat the purpose, because we go through carbonic maceration to avoid the tannin, only to put it in a barrel, right?
And if you added any kind of wood to this, that's what you'd be picking splinters out of your teeth. It would totally dominate the fruit.
So, and there's a minimum amount of SO2. I assume that they mean added, because SO2 is a natural byproduct of fermentation. So there's always some SO2 in every wine, but I'm gonna suggest that they're probably not adding a whole lot of additional SO2.
Sometimes when people taste these wines, they come up with, if you taste even banana or bubblegum, some get that light little spritz. And to me, that also is not a good thing, because if I get any kind of a spritz or sparkle, that means there's still fermentation occurring.
Right. All right, and finally, they used a pneumatic press. Now, I'm going to guess the other ones may have done the
pneumatic?
same, but it's a press with a bladder that is governed by air that gently presses the grapes, as opposed to, you remember the old basket presses where you really crank down and squeeze the grapes.
It's a gentle way of
this is juice. More gentle, because the more gentle, the less unwanted extractions you're going to get.
Remember, we don't want to bruise the fruit. We don't want to slam it down. We don't want to. That's why they're hand picking, and why even the presses are going to be very gently inflated, and just to make the grapes pop at that point. So, or to press the juice.
Now we get into food pairings. Now that we've tasted all three wines, and it's at the top of the list, of course, is Thanksgiving turkey, which is coming up.
Everyone says, what do you recommend for Thanksgiving? This drives me crazy. I worked for the board for 34 years.
34.
And every year someone says, what do you recommend for Thanksgiving? Well, there's numerous things, obviously, but you start with, obviously, how you're going to prepare the turkey. So let's assume maybe it's a traditional Thanksgiving turkey, the roasted turkey in the oven. But think about what we're having here, because pretty much anything grilled, anything smoked, I'm thinking about just that turkey skin, just basting and I'm telling you, this Nouveau is going to sing with it. So, there's certain things here that they recommend out there, but I still want to think, if you want a glass of wine, go to Nouveau. If you want it with chicken tacos, go to Nouveau. You want it with kebabs? Go to Nouveau. It works kind of with everything. I don't know that there's an anti to this. So if it let's say, does water not work with something? Water works pretty much with everything. This is one of those wines I think kind of fits into that. And here's a classic. You think oysters and you want to think maybe traditional, maybe Sauvignon Blanc, maybe. No, try this. Try this. It isn't just white wines, but yes, your Nouveau doesn't have tannin. Tannin is the anti. You want tannin with red meat and protein. When you come up and have no tannin here, it should be you're going. It's a good match. It's going to be a good match. Tannin in these types of foods is going to taste like chewing on a ball of tinfoil. Without the tannin, you can get away with it. Got to roll with this. These are a list of references. We're going to still try to get these presentations out to you guys if you're really interested in learning more about these, or I mean, looking deeper into what's presented here. But these websites that I have here, I can't emphasize enough. The one website, discoverbeaujolais.com, they have 1,000 recipes, and they're great for printing out. But anything that I have listed here is specific to the wine, to the importer. And all these sites have some good little chunks of info. Pretty much the whole presentation was put together from these websites for the core. So please visit them, see what they have to offer.
And if you are interested in sending, I think we figured out what the problem was with the last batch, and we're going to rectify that. But I just put my email address on the chat facility. So if you jot that down, send me an email. Ask me to send you this presentation. We'll do that.
And hey, we have, we're just talking about Thanksgiving and Nouveau and all that kind of goes with, I want to say anything but Thanksgiving turkey. But, we have another holiday coming up, don't we?
You mean Christmas?
I think so. I think it's in there. But my wife's favorite cocktail, and I threw this out there just to mention, I'm a big fan of real ingredients, because I know the Cosmopolitan isn't like, I know we're getting really off base, but is a common mainstream drink. But often too many people use, I want to say generic or alternatives to making a drink. I try to use really what I consider the very best. And when it comes to like orange liqueurs, Cointreau, there's nothing like it. Triple sec to me tastes like medicine in a bottle. There are other versions, but Cointreau, yes, I'm a Francophile. So even in the liqueurs, I'm going to send you to France, or try to send you to France, because that's kind of where it started, where it all began. So if you like the recipe, this is, again, my wife's favorite cocktail. Not that I make it every night. She's a school teacher. So this is her relaxation in the evening sometimes. So go France.
So I think that just about puts an end to this production. And but stay tuned, because we're going to have future virtual wine tastings.
Hey, Mike, Denise went away. There's Dave. See, I get to now see people. So I get to just talk to a screen until this point. Now I get to kind of see who the people are.
We didn't see.
Hey, I just like to say hi. This is such a drag. Hey, Nate, just a drag doing things like this. So, but please, guys, if you have any questions, let me know. Let us know, because I get a kick out of doing this stuff. So if I can help in any way, let me know. So,
all right.
Hey, there's Denise. Hey, Denise. She's eating. Share. Oh man, what are you eating?
So listen, this has been on behalf of the Pennsylvania Wine Society and Joe and me. We wish you a happy Thanksgiving, and please stay safe.
See that, Denise? Do you see that?
And drink lots of Nouveau.
Sorry.
All right. And it says, please send me, somebody's saying, please send me your contact info. I would be very interested. Well, I just put my email address in the chat forum here. So if you would write that down, it's Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at bcme.net. And I'll send you a copy of this presentation.
Nate just finished his.
Finished his what?
Whatever he's drinking.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Man, he just slams
slugging it down.
Yeah, that's Nouveau.
There it is. So love these events. Thanks, guys. What's the next theme? I've got 2 more themes coming up in December. One is actually I'm going back to a Pennsylvania winery, one that one that many of you may never have heard of. It's Bina Winery in Allentown, Binah. And the guy is a friend of mine going back to 2014, and he just makes incredible wines. You will see his wines in some of the wine and spirit stores in the March-April timeframe. The buyer downtown told me that he just thought they were incredible. So, and I want to share this with everybody and let you taste his wines for yourself. Then on the 20th of December, Joe and I will be back, and we're going to do another show, this time probably on holiday wines and so forth, things that you could pair up with foods, and we'll throw in a bunch of other stuff too.
Never
and
know.
and we might even have a door prize or two. In fact, I know we will, because I already have them stashed away. But
Can I have one too? Oh.
Because that's my thing, to do door prizes. So at any rate, stay tuned, and we'll look forward to seeing all of you again.
Cheers, guys.
Take care. If I could just get out of here.